All right, so my name is Alex Rosenbower, and I work at Pendo, and I'm going to be talking to you about kind of how we've embraced one of our core values here at Pendo, show me the data, through our implementation of a modern BI strategy using Looker and BigQuery. So a little bit of background about Pendo. We are a B2B SaaS company. Our slogan is we have software that makes your software better. So what do? We have in-product guides, in-app analytics, user feedback, and NPS and road mapping. So all in all, this is to help software companies deliver a better digital experience for their end users. And so here at Pendo, we've got 7 core values. The one that our team embodies and promotes the most is show me the data. So no matter what decision, data should be the primary input for decision making. This means access to data across different systems, deep understanding of business processes, how data is generated as a result of those processes, cleaning data, making it consumable, and ensuring that data is a forethought rather than an afterthought when it comes to business strategies, being able to quantify success. So a little on the background of data science and business analytics here at Pendo. So I started about 3 years ago. I was the second hire on a small team of a mix of data scientists and another analyst. Really, our goal initially was to show the value of centralizing, having a centralized data source in BigQuery, of using a BI tool, of Looker, for consistent, accurate, and up-to-date reporting. One of our goals was to improve data literacy throughout the business, and to utilize modeling techniques through models that would enable Pendo to operate as more of a predictable business. So many of you might be familiar with this recent meme trend. This is one of my favorites. I thought it was applicable to our experience with our BI strategy. So here on the left, we've got how it started. This is prior to Looker. So prior to Looker, there was a lot of reporting from different folks throughout the business, directly out of our CRM, through exporting data into spreadsheets and sharing the information directly in emails. And this just led to a lot of inconsistent data methodologies, inconsistent business logic, and was really frustrating our leadership when being able to answer a question like, how much revenue have we sold in a given period, yielded 4 or 5 different answers. So our leadership team recognized this as a problem and recognizes the need to standardize reporting in one location with a consistent set of business rules in order to find these core KPIs that would help us grow and scale the business to where we want it to be. So in comes Looker, and here on the right, we see how it's going. So now we've got a dedicated team. We've got a centralized resource in Looker where multiple end users can go to one location, see well-defined and agreed upon business definitions, core KPIs, and make sure we're all speaking the same language. So when I think back through this process of implementing our BI strategy, of implementing Looker, I kind of break it down into 3 categories. And these kind of span across the 3 or 4 years that I've now been with Pendo. And so early on, we have our onboarding stage. Kind of as we progress, we got into a maturity stage. And where we're at today is what I'm calling our acceleration stage. So the reason I call these out is because the challenges we encountered during our onboarding stage are different than those that we saw in our maturity or acceleration stage. Sure, many of these challenges persist throughout, but a lot of the solutions that got us through our onboarding stage, in those types of strategies are very different from what we implemented in order to mature our business and mature our BI strategy in years 2 and 3, different from what we're doing today to kind of accelerate and promote beyond where we were then. And then lastly, if I were to kind of plot these 3 stages on a chart where the x-axis is time and the y-axis is value, this is roughly how it plays out, in my opinion. So really early on in the onboarding stage, we're just trying to get our BI tool, get our BI strategy out the gate. Our primary goal is to just build content as fast as we can to support different departments across the business, which was a slow process and was kind of, took a little bit longer to recognize that value. As we moved through the years into more of a maturity stage, we started building that momentum. We had an established product. We had an established buy-in from folks. And so now we're starting to get more mature usage and see a more mature BI strategy. And then here we are over 3 years later in what I'm calling our acceleration phase. We've resolved a lot of our technical debt that came as part of our onboarding and maturity phases. And now we're really looking to accelerate the momentum we've gotten throughout the onboarding and maturity stages, or strike while the iron is hot, as they say. So I'm going to be walking through those 3 stages and just give a little bit about how we tackled them, some of the business values and alignments and technical aspects that went along with them through each of those stages. So we'll start here with our onboarding stage. One of my mentors here at Pendo has got a presenting strategy that I really appreciate and want to adopt for this, and that's the 3 Ps, or explaining the purpose, the process, and the payoff of what you're presenting. So in this case, talking about our onboarding stage, our purpose was really just to align the business on core KPIs. Our process for doing that would be to establish a single source of truth through our BI tool Looker. And the payoff of this is reliable data alignment on core KPIs across the business. And we can see this through a centralized health metrics dashboard that pulls together data that supports all of our different departments and is really used as a facilitation tool in our executive meeting on a weekly basis for leaders from different departments and different teams to be able to talk towards their projects, the KPIs that matter to them, and how they ladder up to the overall strategy of the business. So diving in a bit deeper there, we just talked a little bit about the business value. That was creating the single source of truth through Looker and getting that alignment across the business on core KPIs. So that strategy was working with our leadership team to define KPIs, to define the business logic that would be used to measure these KPIs, and then housing them in a single location, Looker, which would be deemed our single source of truth. So we talked a little bit about that outcome being more reliable data, alignment across the business, an understanding of how KPIs are defined and measured, and then where to go in order to see them. So we saw all of that in our centralized health metrics dashboard that, again, reviewed weekly by our leadership team, one of our highest used dashboards in all of Looker. In addition to that, in terms of the vision and alignment, we were really able to connect data from a bunch of different systems and display a full picture together in one place. So what does that mean? We were able to combine sales data from our sales CRM with product data from our own product, with marketing data from our marketing CRM. And then we were able to present that to our customer-facing teams, to our sales team, to our customer success, our professional services team. And now they're able to kind of get a full picture of the customer's journey with Pendo, as well as use this in how they approach conversations with our customers. So bringing all this data together really allowed us to hone in on better alignment cross-functionally between teams by offering shared KPIs and shared goals. So marketing and sales, in this example, pulling data out of the sales CRM and pulling data out of the marketing tool, we are able to kind of come up with a centralized location where we have a shared goal and shared KPIs. So now these teams are working more closely with alignment. They're speaking the same language and driving towards some of the same goals. In this early phase, in terms of getting end user adoption, this was a little slow. I mean, inherently, this is change management. We went from a process where folks were used to sharing Google Sheets, we're used to reporting out of our CRM, writing their own business logic. Now we've got this new tool. Now we've got this business analytics team. And inherently, there's going to be a learning curve that comes change in process with a new tool. But really, our key to success here was getting leadership buy-in. So having our leadership team bought into the idea of a single source of truth, bought into the idea of working with us to define KPIs and understanding what was important and what business logic would be needed in order to define these. And we really started to see this catch on when we would see screenshots of our BI tool, of Looker, being showed from our CEO, from our CFO in company-wide presentations. So as you can imagine, you've got a lot of folks who maybe aren't familiar with the BI strategy or the tool that we've just implemented, but now you've got leadership showing metrics, showing a business strategy, and talking to them with a screenshot of the BI tool. Now the sun lights go off and people realize, our leadership cares about this. I need to care about this. Where are they presenting this information? How can I get more about this information? How can I get my team bought into this particular metric? So that was really a huge win for us. And while it was great to see leadership pushing for the single source of truth and pushing for people to get data into Looker, as you can imagine, this led to a large influx of requests across the business. So this was super exciting for our team of 3, soon to be 4. However, it was a bit overwhelming. So we knew we needed to capitalize on this opportunity to be able to show the value of how we can get data from our different systems for our different teams into a centralized location. But it led to us focusing on speed over scalability. So we really had to weigh the pros and cons of this. And at the time, the speed just seemed to make sense. And so this led to a lot of back-end, what I'll call band-aided solutions. So solutions that allowed us to get a lot of data out very quickly, but when looking back, was not a very scalable process. So that was something that we would have to address in our maturity stage. So moving into our maturity stage, we're kind of fast forwarding here about a year. We've got folks in Looker. The business, our leadership has stamped this tool as our single source of truth. There's a plethora of content covering all of our departments. But like I said, we've got 3, now 4 people managing all this content across an ever-changing business environment with changing business rules. On top of that, we've got crazy employee growth, which is exciting to see. But as you can imagine, new employees, new leaders bring new questions and new ways of wanting to look at the data. And now all of a sudden, we were becoming bottlenecks to just answering kind of some basic, what happened or what is this metric by this slice type of question. So in our maturity stage, really our purpose here was to reduce time to value through creating a self-service environment. And the process here would be setting up a backend that fostered a self-service environment and create champions throughout our business. So one of the cool things about Looker is you can have your standard viewers, but you can also have these explorers or kind of power users, if you will. And so establishing these as our champions and power users that can go a level deeper into the data. The payoff of this was really creating advocates throughout our business. So other folks using Looker, other than just us in terms of pulling together insights and content. Overall, a better user experience, so more tailored to the type of user you were, to the type of department that you worked in, and then starting to build a more scalable backend that would benefit us down the road. So diving into that a bit further, just kind of going back to what I said, here we are in the maturity stage. A lot of those solutions that helped push us through those early onboarding stages and getting that initial adoption were no longer the solutions we needed to really help the business mature in their use and understanding of our BI strategy and of Looker. So again, we were really trying to get people to be able to answer some more of these basic what happened questions beyond our team being a bottleneck. So with the efforts kind of behind the scene and revamping our Looker model, which I'll kind of talk about here in a minute, we were able to create an environment that began to allow for more complete self-service of reports. And so what we saw here is we began seeing our power users or our explorers starting to curate their own content Looker, using our revamped data sets and definitions and descriptions of how to use specific fields and measures, dimensions. So this really helped instill confidence in our champions and our power users to be able to use Looker as kind of a critical tool in driving that cross-functional collaboration. And on top of that, it also freed up a lot more of our team's time to focus on longer-term projects, to focus on answering the why questions, on the predictive modeling, and less time on kind of some of the basic what questions, which is where we felt we could be of most value to the business. So in terms of the end user adoption, I mentioned establishing these champions. Really the key to allow us to do this was the work on the back end. So some of those keys to success in creating a positive experience for our champions, we're customizing the front end experience. So, if you're somebody in the sales or marketing team, when you log in, you should see go-to-market data. You should see sales data, marketing data. There's no need to see engineering-related data, product data right up front. We want to tailor that experience to your day-to-day, to the data that you're going to be interested in. And vice versa, if you're on the product and engineering team, you log in, you want to be able to get product and engineering data right up front. So that's kind of how we set that up, putting intuitive organization of our content. And then really key, not always fun, but key was training and enablement. I mean, that was huge. We did everything from host Looker office hours. We did one-on-one trainings with our champions. Not super scalable when you've got a team of 4, but extremely valuable. We created training and Q&A resources, video explainers, step-by-step guides. And then finally, we had a dedicated Slack channel, so kind of a community channel for these folks to go in and ask questions about, how to use the data, challenge other people if they've had similar struggles or had ideas to accomplish a particular task. And so really enabling our champions to be part of the community, but also to evangelize this data to the rest of our business. And then lastly, like I said, in order to have this positive self-experience, we really had to revamp our back end. So this was a complete overhaul for us, but we were able to build easy and repeatable workflows for scale and document these tactics, which have enabled us to spend a lot less time on the back end ever since then. So lastly, we've gone through this onboarding stage. Here we are, through this maturity stage in year 3. We've got an established source of truth. We've got business-wide KPIs centralized within Looker. We've got a growing group of Looker power users. We've got decent documentation at this point, and we've got a back-end built for scalability. So what's next? It feels like we've got there. Well, we wanted to accelerate it. We've got to this point. We're really getting the buy-in. How can we really drive home the business value of our BI strategy of Looker? So that was our purpose here. Can we increase business value further? And the process for doing that would be to develop a deeper understanding of how folks are using Looker. And that payoff, we feel, is a more data literate organization, as well as broader adoption from kind of our end users or our viewers, as well as a deeper adoption and deeper understanding from our power users or explorers. So just to dive into that a bit more, one of the things we started to look at was how can we get a better end user experience? Us being an analytics team, we wanted to understand what does the data tell us? And so Looker's got this cool feature on the back end in the admin section where you can actually look at all the activity metrics related to the dashboards and content and explores that you've created to kind of understand who's using what, how often, what's not being used, where are there potential friction points. And so we really dove into there and wanted to understand how can we increase our weekly active users. We're creating content that our leadership has told us is important, that they want the business looking at on roughly a weekly, if not more, basis. So can we set targets on increasing our weekly active use, as well as set targets around getting better usage or helping our power users kind of experience these aha moments, the moments that are going to let them get that value and understand the value of being a power user or an explorer. So yeah, deeper engagement for our power users and increasing adoption from new users and more reasons for repeat visits from those users were our main areas of focus. So I think leadership recognized this value and recognized how Looker would be a key component in increasing our data literacy throughout the organization. They saw the work that we were putting in with things like training and enablement. I mean, frankly, it was kind of a part-time job on top of what we were already doing in terms of data organization, strategy, and analytics and modeling. So, our leadership recognized this, and we were actually allocated budget for us to be able to create someone dedicated to this cause, which was super cool. We've got that person in place. We've got a data visualization analyst whose primary focus is all the things that we've been talking about today. It's a positive end user experience. It's making sure our back-end processes are well documented, are well maintained, and any areas for optimization we're optimizing, making sure unused content doesn't hang around for too long, and that folks are aware of new content that we're pushing out. So we're getting this end user adoption, but it was kind of coming to us slow. We were growing our employee base, but we were kind of growing our user adoption, our weekly active users, roughly at the same rate. And our goal was to grow that at a faster rate. So we had to kind of get creative with this. And one of the benefits of working on a centralized analytics team is that you get to work with and see projects from across the business. But not all of the business gets to see those projects. So, we get to work with our product team and then go work with our sales team. But our product team is not always familiar with what our sales team is doing and vice versa. So one of our team members came up with this brilliant idea of data snacks. And this would be a bi-weekly email or Slack message that would go out to the entire business, which is a quick and interesting discovery from a recent project that we've been a part of. I'll show you that here in a minute on the next slide. But as you can imagine, we're showing a quick clip of, hey, check out this stat or check out this trend. Then at the bottom of that email and kind of a large call to action button, we're giving people the opportunity to explore this data further or check out this dashboard where this data lives. So, now you've got folks that maybe aren't involved at all in this project, but are intrigued or didn't know what was going on and didn't know that this resource existed. And they're able to kind of click in and get an idea of some of the data and some of the insights that we're surfacing, even if it's not directly for their day-to-day or their team. So we got a bunch of good feedback from that. It often helped generate meaningful discussions from folks that were involved or weren't involved in the projects that the insights were related to. And like I said, we'll check out a quick example here in a second. Last thing I want to say on this is really at this point, now that we've built a scalable process, and once you have a scalable back-end process in place, it's all about sticking to a process. So in doing so, it really allows for better collaboration from analysts on our team. It allows for a quicker ramp time when you add new analysts because you've got well-documented, consistent processes across the different data models, across the different data sources. So for me, someone who's working primarily in a go-to-market motion, if I get a question about our engineering or our product data, and maybe the person who's primarily responsible for that is out that week or is just too busy, I at least know where I can start because the process to establish those data sets and build out those models on the back end of Looker is the same that we're using on the go-to-market side. So I'm not flying completely blind. I might not understand all of the dimensions and measures, but I understand how it should be built and where I can start to look to kind of help folks answer any sort of questions or issues with the data that they might be having. So to wrap it up, I'll give you a sneak peek of one of our data snacks. This one is now, I guess, over a year old. It is a COVID edition. Seems to be a popular topic these days. We call this one Cabin Fever Edition. This is from August 27, 2020. One of the cool things about working at Pendo is since we are an in-product analytics tool, we have end users, but we are also helping those end users collect data about their end users. So we call that our customers' data. Super meta, I know. But we're able to aggregate and anonymize this data and then kind of slice it by a few different key slices, in this case is industry. And so our takeaway here is Pendo customers in the hospitality industry saw some of the sharpest downfalls in their customer events in early March due to COVID-19 travel bans. This is probably not a shocker at this point, but these customers appear to be recovering gradually and are almost back to their pre-COVID levels. Would be super interesting to look at what this looks like now, but this was our takeaway as of the time in August. And then you'll see the big purple button down at the bottom that says, how are other industries affected by COVID? By clicking that will drive you to one of these dashboards that we've created where we've done an entire analysis on the different impacts across industries of COVID and the recent trends of usages of products in these different industries. So this is just one of the ways we got creative in trying to drive awareness and transparency into the work that our teams are doing across the business. So with that concludes my presentation, and I will move over to the Q&As to answer any Q&A.